Hi there, it's Zoe. And my question for you this week is it time for you to step back, step aside, maybe step in? Let's find out which way you need to step and how you might do that. Let's do it. My guest today is none other than the illustrious Digby Scott. Digby is a long-term friend of mine. I met him when we were both young guns, excited to be part of the Thought Leaders Business School community. Digby is a repeat guest on the show. And I love Digby's work. We have long paralleled each other in terms of the things that we're thinking of and connecting about. Digby is a fabulous thought leader. He's authored 2 books on leadership. Has been a restless go-getter. We'll talk a little bit about that. He is a great leadership expert, facilitator, coach, and trainer, as well as a podcaster. And he has a podcast called Dig Deeper. But one of the things I love about Digby is that he loves to sit and wrestle with big questions. And he doesn't jump to the answer. He likes to let it all distill after he's mashed it over a little bit. And today we do a little bit of mashing around this topic of what's next for mature leaders. How do we go to the next stage of our leadership careers in a graceful, useful, meaningful way? Let's get into it. Well, all the way from Wellington, New Zealand, welcome to the show for the second time, my good friend Digby.
Zoe, it's nice to see you again, talk to you again, and all the way from Sally, Wellington. This is the first day I've been back from overseas for about a week. It's the first day we've seen any sun. I'm wearing this Hawaiian shirt just to I think my wearing the shirt this morning has just willed the sun through, because as anyone who's lived here knows, weather is not why you live here.
Oh, okay. Well, weather is one of the reasons why you live in Newcastle. And it's
True.
lovely at the moment. Windy, but lovely. And well, if you're listening, too bad you won't have the visual distractions. But if you're watching, you've got Digby's Hawaiian shirt and my ginormous blue microphone muffler, which I bought because it's supposed to provide studio quality sound, but appears on the video as a giant blue ball. So if I come up with a solution of why it isn't so distracting, then that would be terrific. But in the meantime, here we are. Let's do this thing. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. It's going to be quite conversational, as we've talked about. And it's this whole idea of being older adults now. I think I can finally say that.
We're grown-ups.
Pretty grown up. And I've been thinking about a lot about these transitions. I've been blogging about it around this chrysalis idea, this idea of transformation, especially in later stages of life, where you're going through all this potential change. It's not change yet, but potential change. And it comes up, and I know in our offline conversations, we've been talking about that. It's like, what's next? What does what next look like? And whether you're an older worker in the workforce or whether you're in earlier stages, we go through these ponderings from time to time about what's next. And in the context of this conversation is around legacy. And I've heard younger people talk about legacy. I think they come at it from a different angle than older adults talking about legacy. So when we're thinking about legacy and when we're thinking about later stages of career, I don't even want to say end of career because I think that's problematic as well.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of thought patterns come up in the conversations you're having with the people you work with, or even with yourself about later stages of career and legacy?
What I hear a lot, including with my own self-talk, is it's a bit of what got me here won't get me there, to quote Marshall Goldsmith.
Yeah.
That I've crafted a career and delivered awesome results and had a great ride. Yet, to put it bluntly, I'm getting tired. And I think what's making me tired is I'm running on an old set of assumptions, stories, habits, practices that got me here, which is essentially be bloody good at what you do, have some technical expertise, some incredible drive to make stuff happen, And that's the formula that gets most of us to where we are today. And then the system called your body and probably your mental state as well starts to go, slow down, dude.
Mm.
That, you need to. And when I say slow down, it doesn't mean mentally slow down. It's just like, well, what I'm noticing for me at least is that I'm starting to value different ways of spending my time. Not that my energy is any less, but I just don't want to be on rush mode all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's this sort of junction, I think, that a lot of us get to where we start to go, I don't want to stop, but I want to start to do things differently and also to redefine what success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And we can dig into that. I think there's a hang on. I've been such a hero in my work. I've been so much leading from the front, making stuff happen. Do I need to do it anymore? How do I get the same sense of satisfaction that perhaps I have had, but maybe do it in a different way? And I reckon that's what's happening for lots. That question is there.
It's definitely started for me about 5 years ago. I'm
Mm.
like, ugh, I've hustled
Yeah.
my butt off to get to where I am, and it's
Hustle. Yeah.
it's tiring. And it
It's
is so
fun, but
it's
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 exhausting.
exactly.
Mm.
And there's the rush of accomplishment and achievement, all that adrenaline stuff, and it's fascinating. And I wanted to share an anecdote from this morning at my gym, waiting to go into the exercise class, and these two people were having a conversation, and she asked him, so it was a young woman, I would guess she's in her 30s. I'm not really good at guessing age, but she's at least 20
Younger than
years
you.
younger than me by probably 2 decades. Talking to a colleague, she's like, "What have you decided to do differently?" And he said, "Attack." And she's like, "Yeah, I get that. I just started my business and it's attack, attack, attack. My mind's going all the crazy things at night, and I have to make all this list of all the things to do." I'm like, "Oh my God." That's definitely not on my list of intentions for this year.
You know,
But I
it's
I get
interesting.
it. Like, she's
Yeah.
starting a business. She's in her 30s. It's like this
Yeah.
huge adventure that she's about to embark on. And that's the energy, that go, go, go energy. And yeah, you ride that while you can and want to.
And
And
should actually. I think there's
you
something
should.
about, yeah, no, I remember starting my own practice back in my 30s, and that's the energy
Mm,
I had. I
yeah, me
wrote a
too.
book called Change Makers, which is all about the restless go-getter in the world. Go and make some stuff happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in my 40s when I wrote that. No, it wasn't. Yeah, something like that. Let's just say it was. And it was for people coming kind of behind me a bit. It's like, go and make a mark in the world. You know, it's interesting. This year, 2026, is in Chinese astrology is the year of the fire horse, and it
Hmm.
combines, the energy of the horse with fire, which is like it's essentially about go and make bold things happen. So for someone in their 30s, like that person at the gym, yeah, man, this is your year. And I think I noticed when I read that, I was reading about the year of the fire horse. Okay, so I'm in my 50s. What does that mean to me? And I still reckon it's the year of bold action. Yet I think the action is less about frantic adrenaline attack energy, as you picked up on. And
Mm.
it's more about actually the opposite. It's about the boldness to step back and allow others to step in. And that's bold. I think for a lot of us who have
Yeah.
the script of if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's going to happen, it's best that I do it because I can lead from the front. And of course, the risk is, well, what would happen if you weren't around? And if you're creating a culture of dependency,
Mm.
uh, that's that's quite risky because eventually one day you won't be around. So, what are you doing now that might be some sort of different bold action that means that you are letting someone else do the doing and you can create the conditions for that doing to be awesome.
And so many leaders don't want to do that, actually. And
Mm.
it's really interesting to see that. And I talked about this in my latest book, Power Games, as well. When the leader hangs on to power because they don't want to let go of the identity of being in charge, all the
Yes.
privileges that come with authority,
Yes.
and they become stale and stagnant and they stymie everybody else around them. And it's problematic for the organization.
Yeah.
But the what's the alternative? And I think this is at the nexus of some of the conversations I'm having with leaders. It's like, how do I let go of that importance and that privilege and find something meaningful after that? If I'm going to be stepping aside and letting others step in, that is the step aside. It's like I am no longer relevant, which I think is the connotation there. And I think it's challenging for people, whether you decide to step aside and mentor other people or retire or stop working. The relevancy, I think,
Yeah.
the ability to contribute is the juicy part that we struggle to let go of or to redefine. And it comes to your point now, how do we define success? And I think I've always had worked with leaders and said, how are you defining success? Let's explore that because everything else will revolve around that. All your actions and your alignment and your resonance will align around that. How ought it to change? Is there an ought to change around this success? Tell me what you're thinking about this defining
Yeah, it's a
success piece.
great question. I think naturally, as we grow as humans, there's a different set of definitions of success that come through, and it's or wanting to come through, perhaps. And I think, yeah, you look at someone who's in their 70s, they'll likely define success differently than when they're in their 30s. I think it's how deliberate are you being about that, and how present are you to that question coming up. And I reckon there's a couple of things we can be paying attention to, both for us as leaders, individuals, but also if we are in charge or shaping a culture for other leaders to grow in this space as well. I reckon there's one is an inner focus and the other one is external conditions. Let me explain what I mean by that. So the inner focus is that core question is, well, where does my sense of meaning and purpose come from? Like, what gives me a sense of satisfaction, a sense of contentment, a sense of I've done good work here. Only you can answer that. There's no one else who can tell you what that is. It's not going to be on your job description. It's not going to be what your boss says. It's going to be what you feel. And to notice, say a practical exercise there is, I think, look back over the last 12 months. What did that tell you about what was meaningful and important and purposeful for you? The activities that lit you up, the things that you spent time on, where did you gravitate towards? Did you start to have more development conversations with your people than perhaps you did 5 years ago? Are you starting to think a little bit more about the system that you're leading rather than the task that you've got to complete? Where did
Whoa,
your energy go?
stop on that piece, thinking about the
Mm.
system that you're leading as opposed to the task. Do you think leaders do that? Like, do you think they actually think about the system that they're leading or systems? And if they
Mm.
don't, how should they or how could they?
So it's a broad question. Do I think leaders do? Let's think of a continuum. I think the most
Fair
effective
enough.
executives and senior leaders that I know, that's what they think about all the time. That's their primary lens through which they make decisions. If you think about a continuum going towards the least effective, I think they're in crisis mode, and they're the hero that everyone depends on, and nothing gets done without them having some input. They might intellectually think about the system, but are they making decisions and do their actions reflect that? Down that end of the continuum, no, it doesn't. And the identity, coming back to the idea of identity here, the identity is, if I'm not around, then it's a worse place. I need to be here for this to work.
Mm.
And if we got that script running, then we're not going to be able to be effective as a systems level leader. See it all the time. I'm thinking of a chief executive I work with constantly, and I've noticed how he, in the executive team meetings that I'm a part of, facilitate some reflective space for them. He's the one who will probably say the least yet will make observations that others aren't articulating about what's going on in that system of the team. And rather than saying, here's what I think we should do, he'll just go, look, I'm noticing that this is happening and it's a reflection of the organizational culture, et cetera, et cetera. What do we make of that? And he'll ask questions. And
Beautiful.
that's his approach. And he's an incredibly effective leader. He's someone who I think has a kudos because of that. It's that kind of quiet, more observational, not a man who is trying to be a hero, but is not afraid to step in when it's his role to do so. Yet there's no need to prove from his point of view how good he is. He knows that.
It's a very mature person.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think many leaders bring their egos along with them. And that you see that in the ones that are unwilling to let go of their role. And as I mentioned before, stymie the progress of others, or, so that they have an exodus of their talent because they bump up against the ceiling of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
how does one get to be like that gentleman who is wise and mature and externally focused and ego less?
Can I come back? I want to answer that. I want to come back. I mentioned there's two things. So there's the
Okay.
inner work, right?
Yeah.
I think there's also the external conditions. And I think in organizations, we reward hero leadership too much. We
Oh,
reward
totally.
this leader did this amazing thing. Let's give them an award or a pay rise or a promotion or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Because of this leader. Trump's just been speaking about his achievements over the
You
last
really
12
have to
months.
bring that one in.
Sorry, you can edit that out if you want.
Oh,
It's this, it's the cult of the hero leader, which I think then drives certain behavior. Like if I'm going to be valuable here, this is what I need to do. So if we can shift the organizational metrics, the measures, the culture that recognizes and awards things, that whatever that is, we can shift behavior. And I'm trying to think of the organization I read about the other day. The only metric leaders had that they were measured on was culture.
mhm.
And if cultural metrics, whatever that, it didn't explain exactly what the metrics were. If they didn't shift in the course of a year, then they were essentially invited to free up their future, find a new path. And there was quite a high turnover in the first couple of years of this idea. Yet the organization, and I'm trying to remember the name, I wish I could pull it out, from a performance point of view, shifted something like 500% in terms of turnaround. You know,
Financial turnaround.
massive shift in, I think it was profit, market share, a whole bunch of different shifts with that one single metric, which has nothing to do with individual performance from a look at me, what I did. It's like, how did I shape and create the conditions for exceptional performance, innovation to emerge? So I think those external conditions matter a lot. So it actually does come, your other question is, how does one develop that maturity? That's,
Yeah.
I mean, both of those things have to happen at play, right? So reflective practice, you and I both know the importance of, know thyself. The work of leadership as reflective practice, to be able to understand what is your own sense of purpose? What does success mean to you? What are the things that trigger you into perhaps less ideal behavior? I call it smaller me behavior, the smaller version of you rather than the bigger version of you. And to be able to then cultivate practices, habits, behaviors that allow bigger me to show up. So I reckon that's the core of how one becomes that. External conditions, I think incredible mentors and role models are a huge part of this. I don't know if we have access to the sort of leadership role models that we need. If we want
They're
to
few
shift
and
from,
far between, like the
yeah,
examples are rare.
Yeah. And then when we find them, we turn them into a hero, like rather than a host, which is, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like we need host role models rather than hero role models. You know, host being someone who creates the conditions for others to thrive, etc. Yet when we
It's a bit
find
of a
them, we turn them
paradox,
into a
though, isn't
hero.
it?
It is.
It's it's a paradox because we're looking for role models who are focused on designing the conditions for others to succeed because you want to know what I can do in order to
Yeah.
do that thing. So that's like we need individual role models, which is kind of leaning towards the hero model concept in a non-hero kind of way. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 in that as well. We need
Yeah.
examples, but we don't need to deify them. Um,
Yeah. Agree.
which
Agree.
mm,
I'm thinking of, and I don't know this story closely enough, but the former CEO of Air New Zealand, Rob Fife, bit of a cult leader in the public eye. Not sure what it was like to work for. Secondhand news says he was great. But I remember a story of him cleaning toilets on planes, right? And there's something about making part of the role not the glorified leader role, but the someone who is able to be able to step out of that and work in the most humblest of ways to show up without having to be the leader, to be the
mm,
one who can be the contributor, the one who can be the observer. I think, it's kind of like a stoic practice, really, is this idea of strip away all the pretense and get back to what really matters here. Give yourself opportunities to get exposure to the the simpler, the essence of what your organization's work's all about. I reckon that can help a lot,
mhm.
as opposed to staying in your ivory tower. Mm.
The ivory tower.
Hmm.
So I think there's a gear change that needs to happen. So we were talking about the attack mode versus the hang on a minute, I don't want to do that kind of energy anymore. And we've alluded to, but haven't really dug into this yet. How do we redefine success for ourselves? And you've been talking a little bit about how do I create the conditions, how do I nurture the system that allows success for others. So this idea of shifting gears around how we define success, how does that relate to this concept of legacy? Are they integral? Are they same track, parallel track? Can they be divorced? What do you think?
Yeah. I put a poll out on LinkedIn a few months ago. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, it'll be there in the featured section, asking, what do we call this thing? Do we call it legacy leadership? Do we
Mm,
call it leading lasting impact? Do we combine those two in some way, or do we have some other ideas? So they were kind of the four choices. And the poll itself, the multi-choice poll, I think it's about 65% of people said leading lasting impact resonates the most. Cool.
mm,
All right. This is a predominantly Australian New Zealand audience, by the way, rather than a US
mhm,
focused thing. And I think we can come back to that because I think there's some nuance. It was interesting, though. I think all the comments that came out, there's a lot of comments around the poll, and a lot of them were saying, well, legacy has, when we think about that, has sort of connotations around ego.
mhm,
And so I'm not a big fan of the word legacy. I it feels to me like it can make it about me and my name on the building or the person that will be remembered in 20 years' time and all that sort of stuff. I think something like leading lasting impact as an idea, as a concept, I think is more about, well, what are you actually here to do that
mm,
will carry on without you?
mm,
It's the serve seven generations idea, plant a seed of a tree that you'll never sit under, that sort of thing.
mm.
So I think language matters. The reason I said it's not about the US thing, I think in the US, you'd probably have to start with legacy because that's kind of, it feels like the culture is much more about the individual and
It
what they're to
is.
do that way. Yeah. How about
Yeah.
you're from North America, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So come back to your question though. So I think legacy, does it even matter? I think is what you're saying. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I said, can we divorce it? Should we divorce it? Where does it, how do success and legacy interact? And
I think,
do they
yeah.
need to?
Well, I think there's a couple of answers to that. One is that for the individual, for me or you or whoever's listening, um, I think we all have a sense that we want to know that what we did mattered in some way.
Hmm.
And it's not just mattered today, but matters tomorrow and the next day. And whether we admit it or not, I think it's part of the human makeup that, I was here, I made a difference. I think that's I think there's something about that feels important. And you could say that's ego. I think that's healthy ego. Unhealthy ego is when you're the one that has to be around to ensure that difference is made. I think there's a
Mm.
real subtle shift there. I think why it matters at an organizational level is essentially resilience. That if we're creating a culture of hero leaders, then the organization is more fragile because it's dependent on single points of failure. If
Hmm.
this leader's not there, things don't happen. If we create organizational cultures and systems that are leaderful, to coin a phrase, then you've got many, many more nodes in that system that can absorb shocks, etc. It's the anti-fragile idea.
Yeah.
Um, that if we can create a culture that's not dependent on any one particular leader, whether that's your team. I think a really good sign is if your CEO leaves, how many people could step into that role? Do you just have one person? Do you have to
Mm.
recruit externally? Or have you got 4 or 5 people that could step into that role?
Mm.
And I think that's why it matters at an organization. It's essentially about anti-fragility, resilience, the ability to, and actually, I think beyond resilience, to be able to continue to grow and adapt, not just to withstand shocks and stay the same, but actually to continue to evolve without any one particular leader. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm also struck by the paradox of all this as well, meaning that if we are a leader who's growing nodes of leaders, a leaderful organization,
Mm.
that's my mission and that's my imperative and that's my lasting legacy or lasting impact. Fabulous. And then I step aside, step away. How do I matter anymore? And
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
this is the juice of what a lot of
Mm-hmm.
leaders are angsting over. If I stop doing this thing, whether it's the direct authority piece or whether it's the nurturing the system and the leaderful organization, when I stop doing that, then what?
Yeah. It's
Then
it's the
what? How
classic.
do I matter then?
Yeah. And it's the classic question that so many people that get to retirement age, yeah, and they go off and they get the caravan or they go and play golf or whatever, there can often be a really hollow vacuum for so
Yeah.
many people. And you'll fill it with all sorts of other activities eventually. I think what helps me, not that I'm there yet, I think what helps me is this sense of not trying to matter too much. Um, that that I was talking to Dr. David Murdoch. I had him on my podcast recently. He was the former vice chancellor of the University of Otago, and is an eminent scientist here in New Zealand. And he was saying, don't try and create legacy. You don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
And that links to this idea of not trying to matter too much, but do good work, and do good work that builds a system that's resilient and can evolve. And I think if you make the system the things that matter, the thing that matters, the culture the thing that matters, the organization, and not you, if you can hold yourself lightly. So it's this idea of memento mori, remember you will die.
Hmm.
And that I remember hearing ages ago that, people might remember you in one generation or 2 generations, your grandparents say, and your grandkids will remember you. And then the great grandkids may remember if you're still around, or they may hear stories about you. But within about 200 years, no one's really going to know.
Mm.
And does it really matter? You know, it's like, there's something quite philosophical about that, but it also helps me stay light,
Yeah.
rather than this has to matter. Everyone has to buy my book.
Yeah.
Let go of that, dude. That's exhausting.
Yeah. It's another beautiful paradox, right? It's like everything is important now, and then in the grander scheme of things, nothing is important. Time is a very long frame,
Yeah,
and in
exactly.
multiple billions and billions and billions of years, the universe will actually dissipate into nothingness,
Yeah.
which is I saw that video and that scared the crap out of me. Then I
Mm.
thought it's kind of it's holding these timelines in your mind, what feels so important and essential right here, right now, is for the alleviation of suffering and opening of opportunities for good things is essential and exciting now. And yet, as you said, 200 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 5,000,
Mm.
the earth will boil dry in 2 billion years.
Yeah.
It's going to go. It's gone. It's got a fine, its entropy is guaranteeing its demise. So, which is incredibly sad, but it also gives you permission to say, does it matter? Don't matter so
Yeah.
much. Matter and
Yeah.
don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. The other bit that came up as you were talking was, I think, uh, for some listeners, it might help to think about actually, it's my responsibility to contribute differently now. It's my responsibility to help others to grow other leaders, to get
Mm,
out of the way, to give them the opportunity to strengthen their decision making muscles,
mm.
to learn how to motivate and inspire others. It's my responsibility to give them that opportunity. And there's something about that I think if people are driven by a sense of responsibility rather than, say, mattering, that might be a useful frame for some people. Um, and I've been thinking about that a bit with my small team. Yeah, it's like, yeah, actually, I think I've got a responsibility to help them grow and in ways that perhaps I aren't leaning into at the moment.
Mm.
And that is useful, I reckon, as a motivator for shifting identity, shifting behaviors. Mm.
So I've picked up here a couple reflective questions. How do I define success? What does success mean to me? And also, how am I mattering? Which I think
Yeah,
is how am I mattering? And I think is slightly
great.
different question than how do I matter? You
Yeah.
know, um,
What's the
and
difference in your mind in those between those two things?
how, how am I mattering sounds like an active concept, meaning what am I doing for contribution? And how do I matter is kind of like the end result of doing something. I'm doing something to be significant as opposed
So
to
one's in the
mattering.
present tense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an active role
Yes,
as
yes.
opposed to I matter, someone's paying attention to me, I'm worthy. So it's kind of a small ego kind of thing. And
Mm.
it's interesting. There's a book coming out, and I saw it on Big New Idea, I think. Adam Grant's cohort of people. There's a book coming out in the next few months called Mattering, and I'm like, I'm flagging that. I want to know what that's all about.
Yep.
And
Me too.
I think that's possibly at the crux of uh, the thing for older adults is what does matter? How does mattering look like for me? And
Love that.
some of us need to give up the big titles and the big grand stages to go, mattering means having a solid marriage, or maybe it's mattering means I'm looking after my grandchildren, or mattering means I'm volunteering at the local library. It feels like a contraction or a simplification. It feels like a diminishment in some ways if you're used to the grand stages. And I think that's also at the heart of this is what does mattering mean? And I think coming back to the whole timeline thing, does it matter the grand stage in 2000 years? No, it does not.
Yes.
So play lightly with that. You can matter by being kind to the person behind the counter as you order your
Yes.
coffee. That is mattering. You can matter by having a book launch and have it go viral. That is also mattering. It depends how you define success.
That's the
And
inner work, right?
yeah,
Coming back to that CEO I was talking about earlier,
yeah.
that's how he rolls. He will have the small talk by the person who's standing in line with him at the cafe a coffee,
Mm.
ask about their life. Just it, and I think he is doing mattering. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how he's wired. Uh, and it's almost like the big achievements are the byproduct.
Mhm.
The because of the daily habits of choosing to do mattering, to be a good human, to
Mm.
focus on the things that actually matter.
When I think
And
about the work that I did with Cindy Wigglesworth and her whole SQ 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence, and the leadership maturity frameworks that I know we're both familiar with, the later stages are qualified with this idea of being a calm and healing presence, which sounds like your gentleman CEO is a calm and healing presence of showing up and being a good human and being doing mattering work where you're offering kindness and recognition and abilities to others. That is a different kind of it's a different kind of presence than someone who's chasing authority and someone who's chasing the stages and the accolades.
yeah, I often talk about it's less about ego and it's more about eco. That
Oh,
there's
say
the
that
ego.
again.
So it's less about ego and more about eco. So what
Eco.
I mean by that is ego is it's about me. Eco is it's about the ecosystem. Now the ecosystem might be a small one. Relationship between me and you is an ecosystem. Let me
Yeah.
pay attention to that. The ecosystem might be the organization I'm leading, this ecosystem of people. Uh, how am I paying attention to the health of that? And I think if we shift from ego to eco, we can we can find our place. Yeah, it's a place of service to something else. You know, it's a time worn tradition. Find something that's bigger than you and serve that. Yeah, and there's something about when we make that shift, then we can do the mattering behaviors. I love how you come up with that. How am I mattering? I think that's the core of serving the ecosystem.
And
Mm.
I think there's something as you were talking about, I was feeling into the options between ego and eco. And the ego feels very grasping,
Yeah,
fleeting, and
yeah, and more, right?
yeah,
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 what's next for me? What's my next achievement? What am I
yeah.
going to attack this year? You know,
And then the eco thing sounds like a deeper source of energy, like a more
yeah,
nurturing, sustaining one. Uh,
replenishing. You think about what
yeah,
we're talking right at the top of the conversation that, this is bloody exhausting. This chasing achievement and
yeah.
the next thing, and oh, my sales targets have gone up by 20%. Okay, sure, let's go. Bigger, better, harder, faster. And there's a point where we just do that breathe out. And it's like, nah, bugger that. There's
Mm,
got to be a different way. And I think the different way comes back to, well, how can I do mattering? How can I focus on what matters in a different way and be in service in a different way? I'm finding the word that I'm using for how I define success at the moment is contentment as opposed to achievement.
hmm.
And yeah, I think 10 years ago I wouldn't have used that word. Um, Yet now in my 50s, I'm more like, now what? How do I create a sense of contentment while doing stuff that matters?
Well, you know why? Because contentment sounds like you're sitting around on your ass doing nothing and it sounds lazy.
Yeah, which is interesting, hey, because we don't reward that.
No, we
I
don't.
no, I because I think of it differently. I think of contentment as a result of doing stuff. It's like oh yeah, I feel content in having done that. You know, yeah,
Yeah,
and
you've got miles behind you and accolades behind you. And it's
yeah,
enough. You've been there, you've done the things, you got the trophies, and it's like,
That's
And
enough.
it's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's enough. And yeah, things are never going to be done and finished and perfect, and there's always going to be room for improvement. How do I contribute to that without having to be the one who does it all? Yeah, I
Mm.
reckon that's a good question to be sitting with.
I think an extrapolation of this, what is success and what is mattering, is what is the energetic experience I want to have in my world. And
Mm,
for you, that was contentment. I want to feel contentment.
yeah,
And I think that inner ambition is supremely important.
yeah,
Because at the end of the year, you think about what you did, but it's like, how did you feel doing the things?
yeah.
And you could have two do the same things and feel joyful in one way and then feel miserable the other way. And
Practice. Yeah, agree. Sorry, carry on.
so to help people who are thinking about what's next and thinking about this transition into stepping aside, stepping out, stepping forward, whatever the stepping is, something into something different, getting in tune with what's the emotional resonance or frequency
Yeah,
you want in your world, I think is a really important one.
I
Especially
love it.
later stages, we probably have more resources than we had 20 years ago than when we were in our 20s. So we have more choices to us. And we don't have to keep repeating the same emotional resonance that we had before. And
Hmm. I
I don't
really
think
like that.
I don't think many of us think about that. Like, how do I actually want to feel about my life?
Yeah,
What do I want to do is more about the questions we asked as opposed to how do I want to feel?
yeah, and I'm sure it was Jung who was talking about the first half of life is all about acquisition of talents of stuff or whatever, adding, and the second half of life is about removing. And I also reckon it's a shift from doing to being.
Yeah.
It's the doingness that will give me the stuff, the accolades, the sense of achievement, whatever. And then the being will help me choose to remove stuff that's not helping me be the way I want to be. And the
Mm,
being is, I equate being with the emotional experience.
mm,
Yeah. And so I think it's a really powerful question, Zoe. This one of what's the energetic experience I want to have? How do I want to feel?
mm,
Um,
mm.
becomes more primary than what do I want to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, you have contentment, I have freedom.
Mm,
Freedom is
yeah.
like the freedom to do whatever I want, um, to run my
Sounds like
days
you're
the way that I
there.
want. I am there. It's so good. It is
It's
so
so
good.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
and I
so
kind of
good.
like have to remind myself, like, oh, you're actually doing this thing that you intended, that you've been working to creating.
It's
And
inspiring.
well, I'm glad you feel inspired. And I think that's it's the courage to claim that. And I think so many of us
Mm.
live by obligation as opposed to deliberate choice. And it takes a lot of courage to live by deliberate choice. And I think people get caught up in their obligations eh, because they feel
Well,
like they should.
and the obligations are often a story we tell ourselves. I know this from personal
Yeah.
experience. It's like what's possible, what's not, what do I have to do, what aren't I allowed to do? And I reckon the discipline there is to stop and go, well, how true is that story? And how is that story kind of past its use by date to never give it
Mm,
back to the library now? And
mm,
I've just borrowed it for a while, but it's no longer serving me
yeah.
because, I always get my own way around that stuff. Not always. A lot of the time, I'm like, oh, hang on. Am I just telling myself a story about what's possible? And it's like, hang on, what if I just examined how true that story is? I remember years ago, a simple example of that was I used to be a chartered accountant. Believe it or not, I was an auditor. And I used to pay, look at your face right now. It's like,
Oh
what?
gosh.
Yeah. I was pretty good at it. But you pay your fees to the institute every year, and back in the day, it was about this is a long time ago. It was about $900 a year or something. And I remember holding on to that long after I'd stopped being an auditor. I think I was working recruitment, and then I went into this leadership development stuff that I do now still. But I kept paying my fees because I thought, oh, if I can say I'm a chartered accountant, it gives me lots of credibility. So I just didn't even examine the story about, I need to say I'm a chartered accountant because that's more credible, right? So pay your fees. And they kept going up every year. And then one day I thought, there's one word that will just save me a lot of money. And that word is former. So now I say, I'm a former chartered accountant, which still probably gives me some credibility. Because it's like, well, you're smart enough. Okay, you could do all that stuff. Cool, you must be smart. But now I save myself all that money because I don't have to pay the fees. I'm a former chartered accountant.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good example of, simple things that run our lives and what's possible and what's not. And how much money we have in our bank account based on stories we tell ourselves.
That's fabulous. So, Digby, I would love to wrap up our conversation with some other great reflective questions that we can offer the people listening. And so far, we've had, how do I define success? How am I mattering? What's the emotional resonance that I want to experience next in my life? What are some other ones that you've got that you love to noodle on,
Yeah.
or you would encourage people to
Okay. So
chew on?
a couple that come to mind is, if you were to leave tomorrow, what strategic initiatives wouldn't happen or they would derail? Right? So if you're the CEO or whatever you are, what would stop or falter? And that points to, or maybe where are you too involved? So that's a potentially challenging question.
That's an ego
Another,
versus eco question. I love
yes,
it. That's great.
yeah. Another one is thinking about the past week that you've just had, or if you listen to this at the start of the week, what opportunities to grow people did I have this week, or do I have this coming week, that I could choose to give them, those people? What are the opportunities right here? I could do the work, but what would be the opportunities for me to help others grow?
Mm.
It might be around giving them decision-making authority for something, or it might be a piece of work that they need to nut through themselves, or whatever it might be, or to a piece that they can own. Yeah. They're two questions that I think just can invite you to shift where you're putting your focus and what you're choosing to do each day. Yeah, so there's a couple more just to sit with.
That's beautiful. I love it. I think this will be a nice reflective conversation for the folks listening. I know it's reflective and exciting for me too, just to explore the different ideas around this and how to navigate our way through this murkiness of life and career transition. And actually, I feel uplifted by the opportunities, this
Oh,
idea.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this idea of mattering and impact and growing others and the deeper resonance that that holds than the ego ones. So ego
Yeah,
versus eco, I think is beautiful. That's lovely.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It's a cool way of thinking about it.
Digby, where can people find out more about you and your fabulous work that you do?
So I want to direct people to a specific webpage that where you can do a self-assessment on how you're going about leading lasting impact. It's all free. You just go to digbyscott.com/leading lasting impact. And you could
Leading,
probably just leading
lasting.
lasting impact.
Okay, we'll put that in
Uh,
the show notes, but
yeah,
leading lasting impact with hyphens.
that's the one. I reckon I
Okay.
probably need to remove the hyphens, eh? Yeah, so that would be where I'd encourage people to go. This is conversation with Zoë and I has got any resonance for you, and you want to know, well, where am I at along this journey? And it gives you get a little report and gives you some pointers for based on the stage you're at, what you can be doing differently, and some questions to reflect on, like the ones that we've just shared. So I'd go there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Digby Scott. I'm there a lot.
Mhm.
And that's probably the best way to reach out to me as well.
And you have a podcast.
And I have a podcast. Thanks for the nudge. Dig Deeper. Zoe, I reckon you got to be a guest. It's got to come back the other way now. So I'm
I
in
will
an
come and
odd
be a
seat.
guest. No problem.
Yeah. Dig Deeper. Conversations with depth that'll change the way you lead. That's published every week. So you can check that out on the usual platforms as well.
Digby, it's always fabulous talking with you and special treat to get to share you with my audience. And I do so appreciate you and the thinking that you're doing and the work that you're doing and the energy that you bring, the little pebble in the pond that is the universe, and it will have lasting ripples as far as I can tell. So thank you so much, my friend.
That's such a beautiful way to finish. And I just want to thank you. Listeners, I won't know, but we had a conversation offline a few days ago where I basically got a free coaching session from you on some stuff I was like really grappling with. I was a bit of a hot mess. And you just, what I think your skill is, one of them is you'll listen, you won't say much. And then you'll just do a mic drop question or a mic drop observation that just nails it. And you did that for me only probably 2 or 3 times in that conversation. And I just walked away lighter. And I think it's a superpower. So thank you so much for just being my friend.
Aw, you're welcome. And you're a great friend to have. And I'm grateful for you in everything that you do and all that you are. So thanks, Diggs.
Thanks, Zoe.
I just want to interrupt the show because Digby and I answered the fast 3 questions after we hit end record. Then we started talking about the 3 questions and went, "Oh my God, let's record these." So we did the recording in the second phase. So this is being slotted in the middle of our conversation after the effect due to the wondrous capabilities of technology. Enjoy. Okay, here's a little bonus extra, which is the fast 3, because Digby started sharing his answers. I'm like, oh, these are too good. Let's just record it and we'll add it in. All right, Diggs, fast 3. What's the future technology you most want right now?
Thought to text. So I'm out mountain biking or snowboarding and windsurfing, and I have a thought because that's what happens, right? You're thinking, I don't want to stop. I don't get my phone out. I just want to capture it somewhere while I'm banging down a hill or going down a wave or something, right? That would be awesome. So remove the delay because half the time you forget why I forget. So that's one.
Okay. Number 2, best tip you ever got for leadership.
Make yourself redundant.
Yep.
I think that the whole conversation we just had kind of sums that up.
Yep, for sure. Okay, number 3, what are you reading or listening to right now?
I've just finished reading the 4 Agreements, rereading. Haven't read it for ages. Can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. So that's what I just finished.
Coelho? Paul
No,
Coelho?
no. I actually just read The Alchemist for about the 10th time.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Paulo Coelho. No, the 4 Agreements, similar energy, actually. It's actually just about how to live well. And I'm listening to, at the moment, Good Life Project. It's one of my favorite podcasts, a guy called Jonathan Fields. And the episode that I'm re-listening to is all about how to achieve big goals. But not necessarily to think bigger, but how to put the scaffolding in place so you ensure that they actually happen, which is where I fall down. So he's got I think it's a 7-step process or something, which I'm working through with a big goal, planning to spend a lot more time in Western Australia over the coming months and years. And that's a big goal for me. So I'm using that goal and the scaffolding that he offers to help me ensure that I actually do make it happen, because just having a big goal and the willpower isn't enough. I need the structure as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are great. I love it. So your brain computer interface will do the thought to text for us. And that's actually technology that's been in the works and has got human test dummies happening with it already.
Oh, wow. Okay. I should go and be one of them. Do I have to have a chip implant?
Yeah, they do. They inject this little webby thing at the back of your head, goes into your skull, and it reads your thought impulses. And they've put it in a couple of quadriplegics who can then because they're paralyzed, they don't have any other way of movement. They can then think and do commands. So they can open computer programs, they can turn off lights that are all wired and stuff like that.
Okay. It's kind of scary though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
what if I'm thinking things I don't want other people to know about?
Well, there's the whole ethical side of things like
Yeah,
that. So that
that's
was just
right.
thought commands as opposed to recording your thoughts. So it's got a
Yeah.
long way to go before you're
Yeah. Yeah.
transmitting thoughts like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the basic infrastructure is there.
And I still want
I put it
it.
in my novels. One of my characters gets a
Yeah.
actually a couple of them get brain
Ooh.
computer interfaces, and it comes with its complexities.
The best science fiction is grounded in some sort of truth, right? Some sort of
Absolutely.
actuality. Yeah, that's great.
All right. Well, that was the Fast 3 with bonus extra. Thanks so much, Diggs. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Digby. I just love talking with him. I always feel uplifted and enlightened and expanded after a conversation with Digby. If you've got comments or questions or ideas for us, we'd love to hear from you. Just email me, zoe@zoerouth.com. Drop a comment on Facebook or LinkedIn. We're both hang out in those spaces. It'd be great to hear from you and to hear your opinion and ideas and experience of stepping in, stepping aside, stepping forward, whichever way you're stepping. In the meantime, live with grace, lead in service, live well, lead well.